Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to an episode of In Range. I've got Russell Fagan, Sinistral Rifleman, here with me today, and what we're doing today is a Q&A with questions that we acquired from supporters on Patreon through Discord regarding the upcoming Handgun Brutality match. Handgun Brutality is the first event we've ever run, which is handgun specific, and it's a couple months out, and we figured by clarifying these questions, hopefully it would not only clarify the issue for you out in the audience, but maybe encourage you to sign up and join us at the match. Fagan, do you have anything to add to that?
I think just the basics that it's going to be the second weekend of April. You're going to have 10 stages, 120-second par times. You will shoot all 10 stages in one day. We are having this the weekend after the Barry Steel match at the Southern Utah Practical Shooting Range, in part because with that match having been the weekend before, we can use a lot of their targetry that's already out and positioned. And even if we need to reorient it for our stages, that makes setting this match up and running it a bit easier and less expensive than it would be otherwise.
Which don't take that wrong. We will be running our own stages. What that means is that the actual targets will be out on the bays already. So that's just a convenience thing, but we are running Brutality style.
Yeah, we don't have to do the unloading of the Connex to make the stages. You know, a lot of the stuff will already be out, and it's way easier to move around when it's already out on the bays than when it's, you know, all crated up in Connexes. So
Absolutely. So we've got like 21 questions here, which I don't want to be here all day, but let's go ahead and get that going. So the very first question is, what guns are we intending to shoot? So I mean, that's you and I. So what are you intending to shoot?
my primary run is going to be in service pistol with the Beretta 92X with the Steiner red dot on it. I may shoot a second run in single stack with the TSASS 1911, to be determined based upon time available.
I am definitely running 3 times through the match. Now, I might even do a fourth, but 3 is for sure. I'm going to be doing Cowboy twice. So with one of my runs, I'm going to be using a Merwin Hulbert Skull Crusher, which everyone should be familiar with that. If you're not, you'll see it in the video. And I'm going to also use a Schofield, and I'm going to then use both of those runs to compare them against one another, because the Schofield and the Merwin are considered pretty much top of the line guns from the 1870s. So I figured if I shoot through the match with both of them, I can discuss very well how well they ran for me and the benefits and detriments of each. And then for my more modern run, I'll be using a single stack TSASS 10 millimeter, which I have here. Haven't showed it yet on the channel, and I'm going to be using Handgun Brutality as a place to run a meme round in a 1911 chambered in 10 millimeter. So hopefully that'll be interesting for everybody. Second question, should we expect odd positions with offhand shooting? Well, it's a
I would
brutality
say
match.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the odd positions and both strong hand and weak hand only shooting are always elements that we incorporate into brutality matches. How much of it exactly to be determined, but I think we both agreed that we didn't want more than roughly 10% of the shots fired to be strong hand only or weak hand only.
Yeah, that said, if you think that you're not going to be shooting necessarily under a vehicle or through a barricade, you'd be wrong. This is a brutality match, and we're going to present unique and challenging problems for you to solve. It won't be just running from box A, B to C and shooting at targets. It's going to be a brutality match, and that's going to mean some odd positions. And as Fagan just said, we will have some support side shooting, but it won't be to the point where it will punish you to the point where you can't get through the match. Number 2, this one's more for you, Fagan, because this is something that you've worked on specifically. How should we be measuring the gun dimensions?
All right, so compact carry and service pistol are both dimension-based divisions. I lifted the dimensions for service pistol directly from Stealth Division at the Rios Lotto multi-gun matches. And essentially, if the gun fits in the box with all of its accessories and its first magazine in place, it is allowed in that division. So you have a choice between iron sights and a higher capacity mag to start with, or an optic and a lower capacity magazine to start with. One area that we are deviating from stealth division rules is only your first magazine has to fit in the box with the gun. So it's quite common for people to carry with a shorter magazine in their service or carry pistol, and then reload with longer magazines with +2s on them or so on. We do have a max magazine length of 141 millimeters, which most people should be familiar with from USPSA. So your first magazine has to fit in the box with the gun, whether it's compact carry or service pistol. But after that, you can reload with magazines that are 141 millimeters in length. We do have a graphic you can print out that is in the registration on Practice Score that as long as your gun fits in that printed out box on the 1-to-1 scale with the slide parallel to the top of the box, it is allowed. So optics, lights, lasers, etc. We don't care what you have on your gun as long as it fits in the space available to you.
Now, one thing I want to clarify is when you said first magazine has to be the length that will fit in the box, we will not allow you to suddenly start the stage, drop that mag, and then transfer to a larger mag. You will expend that mag before you reload. It's not going to be some gamer thing like that.
Yeah, you can proactively reload, but it's not going to be the first thing you do on the stage.
Exactly. So you sort of already addressed this, but the third question is, or I should say fourth question, how should we be measuring magazine length?
That's going to be the length from the rear of the magazine to the base of the magazine. There are guides on how to do that for USPSA length. We can upload one of those to Practice Score if we need to as well, but most of your double stack pistol magazines, if it's a +2 to +4, somewhere in the 20 to 23 round capacity range, will meet that length.
So here's the next question, and I'll hit this one first. When at the match, would it be advantageous to use a 357 Magnum and switch between 38 Special and 357? For example, 357 for a knockdown target or a spinner, and then 38 for distance and paper. Or would it be better to just stick with one? Is this even allowed? Well, it's allowed. I don't see a reason if you're running a gun that's 357 Magnum and you want to switch between 357 and 38 Special or vice versa, I don't have any issue with that. And I don't think there's an issue in the rules that would prevent it, but I don't think it's going to be advantageous.
I mean, maybe theoretically for a spinner or something like that, it's really no different than if you're shooting 115 grain 9mm most of the time, and you somehow want to use 147 grain for another target. I don't think changing loadings like that is particularly advantageous because it can potentially affect your zero. But we're not going to prohibit you from that. And there's no way for us to practically inspect what type of bullet weights people are using consistently anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to try to do that and move through the stage, somehow designing yourself to be using the right round at the right time, as long as it's safe to fire your gun, I don't have a problem with it. All right, what potential, if any, are stage design possibilities opened up by designing a brutality match around only handguns? Well, I'll say this right off the bat. The range we're running at, the subs range in St. George, or I guess Washington, Utah, that range is really well designed for pistol type engagements. We have a lot of bays, and bays we're going to connect together that are like 35 yards depth or whatever it was. But by combining the bays, we can extend the stage to much longer duration and not have to worry about things like, for example, steel that is closer than would be allowed or safe with a rifle. So we can use a lot more steel that we could safely because we're at those ranges that are safe for pistol calibers. And by combining bays that are normally too short to have only rifles included means we can do a lot more and do longer stages. Fagan, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it possibly opens up some differences in physical challenges because we don't have to take into account a slung rifle on someone's back or having to like crawl with a rifle through certain things. So with that in mind, I think there could potentially be some different physical challenges we try out at this match, not having to accommodate for a long gun at the same time.
Given that most major pistol disciplines, USPSA, IPSC, IDPA, etc., are extremely ossified and resistant to shaking up their mix of ideas, what features, rules, stage design concept do you like from each of them that you would want to bring or have brought over into Handgun Brutality? Well, I can say this right off the bat because I really enjoy cowboy shooting and SASS shooting, in spite of the fact that it's become kind of mundane. The stages for SASS have gotten a lot less interesting than they used to be in the past. But I love Old West guns, 1870s gun, 1880s guns, and that's why you see a cowboy division here in this match. And so, for example, one of the things that I've brought over into the rules for this match from the cowboy perspective is as long as you safely draw the gun, meaning that you're not breaking the 180 during the draw stroke, you can carry more than one pistol. That is something that is very common, of course, is actually required in most cowboy action shooting. You normally have two handguns, and it changes the dynamics. I mean, if you really wanted to, it would be possible theoretically to shoot like a Josie Wales kind of thing where you have so many percussion guns that you could make it through the stage. I don't think that's going to be really viable, but if you wanted to try it, you could. And that idea is being brought over, of course, from the cowboy shooting world, as well as sometimes target presentations might be. So, for example, this target you shoot 3 times, this one you shoot 2 times, this one you shoot 3 times. That's very much a cowboy or SASS style stage design. And I'm sure you'll see some of that in the match. Fagan, in regards to USPSA, IPSC, IDPA, is there anything you're bringing over in that regard?
Well, I think most of our rules are more inspired by the multi-gun matches or 2G ACM and brutality matches as far as the equipment division rules go. Um, I mean, we're really not going to have paper targets or paper target based scoring at this event. It's going to be as much steel as we can. So the hit factor scoring of USPSA isn't something we use. The points down with seconds added like IDPA has isn't something we're probably going to use at all. It's going to be a total time format with penalties added in the form of time, depending on missed targets and other procedural penalties or failed physical challenges. I think one of the things that the only thing we probably brought across from USPSA was just because it's so common is magazine length restrictions. And a lot of magazines are built to that restriction. We have to have some cutoff so that outside of outlaw, we don't have people running around with 30-round mags in their guns and, not using a handgun the way most handguns are actually used.
Yeah, another thing that's actually part of this is that if you're familiar with other video content on InRange and Forgotten Weapons for that matter as well, is some of the ideas of the gun size dimensions came from the backup gun match, which is a little bit of influence there, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah, we basically use the same dimensions that backup gun uses, with the addition of a 1/2 inch in height to accommodate for red dot optics. So that is some of the influence there for compact carry division.
There are tons of major handgun matches nationally. What would I experience at Handgun Brutality that I wouldn't at a major IDPA or USPSA match? Well, right off the bat, I can go. This is easy. You're not going to run from target box A to box B and box C, shooting as fast as you can at paper. That is not what this match is going to be about. This is going to be a brutality event. You're probably going to be crawling over things, under things, through things. There'll probably be weights, physical challenges, kettlebells. There'll be required offhand shooting. There'll be required interesting target presentations. As we already said, the vast majority of targets are going to be steel or reactive steel or some combination thereof, things you don't see normally at those matches as well. So if you're familiar with brutality matches, this is going to be that, but with handguns only. So I think honestly, the difference between this and IDPA and USPSA will be night and day. I don't really think they fly even the same circles. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, a typical USPSA stage is often 15 to 30 seconds long, and we're going to be setting stages up so that if you're fast, you're going to be in the 60 to 90-second range with a par out range of 120 seconds. So the volume of targets and the types of challenges you're going to experience at Handgun Brutality are going to be different than you would in a typical handgun match. I'll remind people that IDPA has a limit on how much distance you can travel during a handgun stage of, I think it's 25 yards. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've read the rules. There is no maximum distance for how far we're going to make you run, other than the realistic amount of time available to do so at Handgun Brutality.
Absolutely. So we kind of already addressed this. Will there be a kettlebell crawling on the ground, shooting from prone, or carrying heavy objects? And the answer to that is yes, 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 and more than that you haven't already asked. So all those things will be in play, and I would expect to experience all of them throughout the match. What is the single last gun in the world that you'd want to use for this match? Do you have, I mean, I can think of one, but what will yours be?
I don't want to use any kind of high point, but I have put out the challenge to people that if they get the new 10 millimeter high point, the first person that contacts me and says they're using the 10 millimeter high point in single stack division at this gets a free entry to the match.
Cool. I mean, I can think of a lot of things that people would think of historically that I wouldn't want to use. Like, I'm not going to want to be out there with a smoothbore flintlock. You wouldn't be able to finish the stage. Like I said, the lowest possible thing to actually shoot this match with would be some sort of 1860s percussion gun, and you'd need more than one of them. You probably want at least 4 of them, if not, no, you need more than 4. It'd be a nightmare. That would be a hard thing. When it comes to cartridge gun, I wouldn't want to use a Nagant. I'll tell you that. Those things are horrible.
No.
Uh, how are the caliber restrictions structured? Obviously, you're not going to permit rifle calibers. Of course, this is a handgun match, and I already described stages are going to have steel that are closer in than rifle would allow. So no, we're not allowing rifle calibers. But what about stuff like 5.7? I assume that is it a matter of power factor to keep things reasonable for the target setup? Essentially, what are we doing in regards to ensuring that someone doesn't come out with something too underpowered or, for that matter, too overpowered? And Fennel has joined the chat.
Well, the maximum caliber we are allowing at this match is 45 long Colt. So if you want to figure that out based on power factor as to what we allow, multiply the bullet weight in grains times muzzle velocity divide by 1,000. That would be the maximum power factor threshold. 5.7, I don't see there's any issue with using that safety wise with lead core jacketed bullets, but we have stated that targets will be calibrated to fall with 9mm. And if you're using something less than 9mm, well, it may take more hits or you may not be able to do it at all.
Yeah, that's on you. So that means you can't bring your 50 Action Express or your, so this is not, you're not bringing 50 AE or 44 Magnum or 500 here. That's right. 45 Colt is the hottest thing we want at the match, right?
Yep.
Okay. And that's because of target breakage, quite honestly. Those, we are using a lot of pistol graded targets and pistol graded knockover targets, and a 500 Magnum is going to damage them, and that's not the point. So, and I agree, 5.7 I think is viable. You're just going to have to maybe triple tap something to get it to go over, but that's on you if you want to use it. All right. If the iron-sighted AKM and the 1911 are considered the completable standard for two-gun or two-gun brutality matches, what is the completable standard for handgun brutality? So for those of you that are not familiar, I've made this statement for brutality matches in general, is that while you won't be able to win with it, you should be able to complete, meaning finish all the stages at a brutality match with an iron-sighted AK and a 1911. And I think that I would stand by that for handgun brutality. You should be able to finish all the stages of this match with a 1911, i.e. a single stack, albeit you're going to have to carry sufficient amount of magazines to not run out. And that's on you. We don't have a limit of how many magazines you carry or how you carry them, but the match should be completable with an iron-sighted 1911. Do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, other than I think we've established that the maximum minimum round count per stage as far as hits required is going to be 40. So you can kind of use that as a baseline for how many magazines you need to carry. I'd recommend for most people to carry 50% more ammo than the minimum required. That usually is what it takes for most people. If you're a really bad shot, probably double that.
Know thyself. One of the ways we score this is that if you run out of ammunition, it will be the equivalent of running out of time. So if you don't have enough on you or you miss so much that you can't finish a stage, you will have all the penalties for all the unhit targets plus the par time. So if you run out of magazines or ammunition within 30 seconds, but the par time's 120, you don't get 30 seconds. You get 120 plus all unhit targets. So be warned. That would be a very bad way to start the day. How do you intend to implement physical challenges during the stage without hot reholstering? This is super easy. Stages will sometimes start condition 3 or empty, depending on what the stage starts like. And if we're going to have you reholster or move through a physical challenge with your pistol, we will do the conventional thing that's become quintessentially part of two-gun. You will drop the magazine and fire the remaining round in the chamber at a high-value target. And therefore, the RO will know the gun is empty. You will then reholster with that empty gun and move through the stage. Hopefully, your holster will be sufficient to retain the gun. Now, if you're running like a cowboy gun or something like that, it would be you would fire the round and leave the hammer down on the spent cartridge. Either one of those will be considered safe for reholstering. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that covers it pretty well.
Cool. What kind of gear as far as pouches and holsters would you recommend for someone shooting this match? Well, I guess that depends on your division. You're going to want a holster that's capable of retention. This is common in all the brutality matches, and one of the most common problems we see are people bring out holsters that do not retain their pistol sufficiently. They jump over a wall or something, and their unloaded holster or their unloaded gun falls out of a holster. that's a problem, and you don't want that to happen at this match. So I would say this is very dependent on what division you're shooting in. So, or if you're shooting cowboy, you're going to want a holster sufficiently capable of retaining your gun or guns, but you're also going to need some way to retain ammunition. That could be a cartridge box on your belt. It could be a bandolier. It could be a cartridge belt. It could be all combinations thereof. For modern guns, you're going to want a holster that retains the gun, and you're going to want magazine pouches sufficient amount to retain enough ammunition in magazines to make it through a stage. But I wouldn't say there's a problem if you had, let's say, 2 magazine pouches on your belt, but a satchel that had like 10 magazines in it. As long as you carry that through the whole match, there's no reason you can't, right?
Right. Yeah, it's all perfectly legal. With single stack mags, you may want to consider some of the pouches that double them up on top of each other if you don't have enough belt space. Essentially, what I'm going to be running for service pistol will be a Safariland holster with um, a retention device and probably 3 to 4 pistol magazines on the belt of double stack 9mm. So
Cool.
again, know your own skill level and how much ammunition you think you're going to need to get through any given stage.
So this next question is relevant to brutality in general. One of the things we do at brutality, for those of you that are not familiar with rifles, is that when a rifle's been cleared, meaning we know it's empty. For example, we start the stage with an empty gun, or we do what we just said, where you drop the magazine and fire the remaining round, or we do something where the RO has to verify empty by pulling the mag and opening the action and watching seeing an empty chamber. Whatever it is, once we declare the gun empty, we frequently do not allow the 180 to affect that gun. It's treated as a stick, and you can throw it up your back on a sling. You can technically violate the 180 with an empty and confirmed empty long arm at brutality matches most of the time. Are we going to be doing the same thing with handguns?
I don't see a reason why you would have to move through the course of the gun out but empty. I think you're either going to be tabling it or reholstering it after you've shot it clear. The only reason we have to do that with long guns is you can't holster a long gun. You're slinging it on your back, you're slinging it on your front, you're carrying it. With a handgun, I think if we're having you do any physical challenges, you're probably going to be reholstering.
I agree. Why would you be running around with the pistol in your hand when you have a perfectly good serviceable holster that you could put it in to climb over a barricade or something? So I don't think this question is necessary. I agree with you. I don't think this question is relevant to the stage design we're going to be using at Handgun Brutality. So technically, yes, but it shouldn't matter because it's not going to happen.
Right.
How will the Kasarda drill work with a handgun? You've had some thoughts on that. We've done it before, but you had some thoughts about it for this event.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing a Kasarda drill for this event because grounding the pistol, and keep in mind that some pistols, all they have is a trigger safety. There's debris on the ground. I think there's some inherent risk with aggressively grounding pistols. Also potentially some risk with single action pistols having the safeties get bumped off as they're grounded aggressively. We've seen that happen often enough with grounding boxes that are specifically set up for the purpose. So there will be physical challenges in a similar vein, but I don't think we're going to do a traditional Kasarda drill of throwing the kettlebell, grounding the gun, and so on. So it really won't be an issue.
So this will be the first brutality event ever where the Kasarda drill is not one of the stages. However, I would say that you should not expect there to be a kettlebell. It just won't be the Kasarda drill.
Correct.
What sort of distances should we expect to be shooting to?
Well, we have the capability to shoot to beyond 100 yards at this event, but I think we both agreed that perhaps 100 yards is the max reasonable distance on a full man-sized target. So we will probably have some challenges like that. But most of the bays are about 35 yards deep. We have, one 75-yard bay, 150-yard bay, and one 200-yard bay. And we'll mostly be using those bays that are longer for distance of movement versus distance of shooting. But I would expect, 50 yards, for example, to be a very common distance on those bays where it's available.
I agree, but it would be possible, and we're retaining the right to possibly have a 100-yard target or two out on the bay. Don't know exactly, but so in general, the minimum safe distance for steel is going to be 15-ish yards, and the maximum will be 100 yards, although don't expect a lot of 100-yard targets. But there will be a smattering of 50-yard targets, just like you said. So anywhere between 15 and 100.
Yeah.
Last question. What should shooters try to avoid during physical challenges with their handgun? I think we sort of addressed this. If the gun's in the holster, what you're going to try to avoid is the gun falling out of the holster. What else would there be but that?
Right. And I think the way to address that is at home with a verified unloaded gun, put it in your holster, do jumping jacks, do some burpees, go kneeling, go prone, etc., and make sure your gun doesn't fall out of the holster.
Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And so let's answer this question. What if the gun does fall out of the holster? What happens at the match?
If it is loaded, it is a match DQ. If it is unloaded, we have a penalty assigned for unloaded guns falling out of holsters.
Fair, 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 fair. So in regards to this, if I will say this, it is not going to be a USPSA match, and I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm saying it's going to be its own thing. This is going to be a brutality event that's just handgun specific. So if you're used to USPSA, IPSC, IDPA, et cetera, or SASS for that matter, you might see some elements of it in there because it's a handgun match, but it will be unique and it will be a brutality event in and of itself. And without giving away stage designs, we can't explain that to you further than that. But all the things you normally would expect. Imagine crawling, imagine jumping over things, shooting through things, under things, around things, support side stuff, 100-yard targets. This is none of, even saying 100-yard target. Have you ever seen that at a USPSA or IPSC match? Definitely not.
No, I believe they have a maximum distance allowed. I've seen it at multi-gun. I've done stuff like that, particularly at Ironman 3-gun, for example. But those sorts of challenges are not often presented at the major pistol disciplines because they have maximum distances allowed for targets to be engaged at.
We have no such rules, so this will be a very different and unique event. And if you're familiar with brutality matches, expect that, but with a handgun. So if you're interested in shooting the event, I will have the link in the description below to the practice course site. You can click on over on that. You can look at the full rule set. You can also download the PDF of the box to check your handgun size. And hopefully we'll see you there. I don't really have anything more to add to that. Do you?
This has come up in questions as well. You are allowed to register multiple times to shoot in different divisions. Please don't register to shoot the same division twice because, then it's really which division score should count for your overall placement. But if you want to shoot a run in single stack, you want to shoot a run in service pistol, or you want to do a revolver run and a modern run, you can do all of that. Just register multiple times. Other questions that have come up are people asked if they have to be present for awards on Sunday. No, you don't. If we do have any prizes that are awarded by random drawing at this event, we will assign them to the people that their name is drawn, and we can mail it to them if need be. So you don't have to stick around. I know people have travel concerns and may need to hit the road, or they're coming in Friday and shooting Saturday and leaving when they're done. You don't need to be present at awards. If you win a certificate or if you win a prize by random drawing, we will make sure it gets to you.
So I noticed, of course, you mentioned that you can't register in the same division twice, and I'm shooting Cowboy twice, but one, I get to do that because I'm making video. And what I will do for myself is I will designate one of my pistols my primary run, and that will be the Schofield, by the way. That's the one I'm going to designate my primary, even though I'm shooting Cowboy twice, because I want to compare the two for a video project. But I can tell you right now, the Schofield is going to be the superior gun from a reload perspective, but maybe not the superior gun from an aiming perspective, but that makes sense. So anyways, if you're interested, look at the practice score in the description below, and hopefully you found this interesting and look forward to the video or being there. And we hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.